Hello to all you vacation rental pioneers out there. My name's Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked, the podcast series that introduces you to the world's leading vacation rental innovators by diving deep into one single key, one specific best practice or technique that opened the door and changed the game. Sean Miller is the president of Point Central, which is the sponsor of this podcast. And I just want to say up front that including him in the series was not required or part of any sponsorship contract or anything. Sean's just a really interesting and smart guy, someone I was really curious to learn more about. And when I had the chance to sit down with him in Barcelona, Spain, at the Kigo World event, Sean really possesses this unique perspective on the intersection of technology and vacation rentals and family. As a father and a husband and an entrepreneur, Sean shares some really noteworthy opinions about where he thinks things are going and how we, as responsible vacation rental professionals, should all stay attuned. Here's me and Sean. My name's Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked. Who are you, sir?
My name's Sean Miller. Pleasure to be here, Matt.
Pleasure to be here. Where are we?
We are in Barcelona.
We are, and more specifically, what is this? Describe to those of us who are not in the room. Where are we right now?
In the hidden back room at the WTC Barcelona, your secret recording studio here.
Yeah, we got our glamour, I don't even know what you call this.
Paper? Background paper?
Background paper, a beautiful view of the harbor. And how has the conference been for you so far?
First day of the Kigo conference yesterday, I thought was really good. Got to see a little bit of the city with yourself and some other members last night. So got some grilled octopus and the foxtrot, the frozen gimlet, which was good.
And I have to commend you. So you arrived a little bit after everybody else, and we were already sitting at the table at a very traditional Catalan restaurant. And we had been versed on this traditional drinking ritual, which is almost like a decanter that had a tube coming out of it, and you pour red wine from a distance into your mouth. And we all just made an absolute mess of this. It was called porro. And we made a mess of it. And you arrived, and with virtually no training, you took right to it like you were born Catalan. Have you ever done that before?
I may have in my single life have dated a girl whose family was from La Rioja and made Spain, so that may have not been my first time doing it.
You have done it before. You made it look like effortless. I was very impressed.
Thank you.
And dinner in general was awesome, huh?
It was very awesome.
Talk to me a little bit about Sean Miller. So you are currently, your role at Point Central is?
I'm the president of Point Central.
Okay, and Point Central is?
Point Central is a provider of what we'd call property automation services. So people may call it smart home or connected apartments. What we view it as is it's a platform that's connecting a bunch of different devices as well as software partners together to bring IoT intelligence to property managers, right? So helping them to run their business more efficiently, serve guests better, and protect the owner's asset.
And is this exactly what you knew you were going to be doing when you were in college?
No, not exactly.
And by the way, where did you go to college?
So I went to undergraduate at a school called Occidental College in Los Angeles,
okay,
and then graduate school at the University of North Carolina.
And this is after growing up where?
Chicago.
Okay. Chicago, then school to study what? Anything in particular?
When I was a freshman, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician because I loved kids. 2 years into it, I realized I didn't want to be a pediatrician anymore, so I switched to economics. Got done in still 2 years, which I was happy about. I also was fortunate enough to play basketball at Occidental, so I had a fun academic and athletic time there.
You're tall. How tall are you?
6'7".
6'7". And were you this big in high school, in college basketball?
In college, I was 6'4" when I entered college, 6'7" when I left. But I was more 220 to 225 pounds. Now I'm about 275 to 285 pounds.
Yeah, you are big. Were you good at basketball?
So I would actually tell you I wasn't that good. I actually only played 1 year of high school, played my sophomore year. My junior year, I tore my knee. My senior year, I had a tumor in my leg that had to be removed. So when it came time to go to college, my pitch to this coach was, look, I really love the sport and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be a part of the team. I can play defense, I can cheer, I can score. What do you need me to do? It also helped. I had a full athletic or academic scholarship at that point. So he looked at me and said, great, like we'll make a spot for you, come on. And I've joked with everyone that I think the reason I started to probably become decent is I had spent so much time on the bench in high school watching others observing and listening to the coaches and how things happen. And we had a decent high school team. So it gave me a different perspective when I actually was able to play.
You approached Coach
after you had arrived your freshman year?
No, I was able to meet him. It was one of the schools I was considering going to, and I was able to meet him beforehand.
And you kind of like sold yourself.
That was what I was trying to do.
And he bought it.
And he bought it.
And did you play?
I did. I played 3 years there. I didn't play my senior year, so I could have 1 year as a normal college student, but I played 3 years.
And was the team good?
We were good. We're a small school. So, we would play smaller, big, like Northern Arizona or schools like San Diego in our preseason. And then in our season, we play schools like Pomona, Pittsburgh, or Claremont, which are good Division III schools. So it was really fun. I felt like I got the experience of being able to play in college, but it wasn't as demanding as a big school.
Right.
I still had other aspects to being a student.
And then you graduated and went straight into the NBA.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish.
Did you use your economics to do something? What was the next step?
So my first job, I actually worked for Toyota North America. I got a job in a training program where I was in finance and then strategy. So I spent 2 years there. Really enjoyed Toyota, but I was sort of young and eager, and Toyota's a little bit more of a culture of a little bit slower innovation and measured pace. So I then took a job that moved me to China to be a project manager for a U.S. company's plant over there. So I didn't know any Chinese. I'd never been to China. I just took this job.
That's a huge leap.
It was huge. I joked with the guy who was looking to hire. I couldn't find someone. And my joke back was, well, that's because you're trying to find someone with experience, but pay him what I earn. So how about I'll give you what you want. You can pay me what I want to earn, but I'll learn on the job and I'll work hard for you. So
you sold this guy in a similar way that you sold the basketball coach.
Yes.
Okay. And he bought it.
He bought it.
He hired you and sent you off to China.
Yes.
How old are you at this point?
I was 24 at this point.
Whoa. Crazy culture shock?
Crazy culture shock. So this was 2002 in Shenzhen. So if any listeners have been to Shenzhen now, it's a very modern city. When I showed up, it was a city that had factories where there's now apartment buildings. And there was these small, what they called minibuses flying all over the streets and still some rickshaws running around. And it was a totally different experience.
What was like the feeling?
Besides hot and humid when I showed up in the middle of summer?
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, definitely, but also excited. Because again, I'm that person who's always loved to learn. And one of the reasons I chose Occidental was I was a kid asked a lot of questions, and I wanted to go somewhere where I could have the freedom to ask people questions and learn from it. So this was just another opportunity for, I didn't know. Good news, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I knew I was willing to learn and open my mind and figure things out. So started there, in project management. By the time I left a year later, this was, again, 2002. People hadn't really heard of LEDs at that point, but I'd actually led a project where I taught myself the basics of electrical engineering, and we designed the first retail LED handheld light that people buy today for $5. We designed the first one, and Sears at that time, which was a still major retailer, had picked it up exclusively.
When you say light, like I'm envisioning the thing you attach to a keychain.
No, this was like a handheld flashlight. So this was one of the first LED handheld flashlights.
Wow. And
16 years ago.
Whoa. And it was a success.
It was a success for the company at the time. It was for me. I, again, didn't know anything and sort of took this on as a passion project when I was over there and got some engineers excited. It was also my first experience with how do you lead through influence. These engineers, A, were different culturally, but B, didn't have to listen to me at all. But I was this kid who was staying after work and messing with soldering things together, and then they took interest with me, and we sort of built this together.
So you're then in flashlight world. Then what?
So then that company said, hey, you've got some experience with or some maybe salesmanship experience. How about you come join our sales and marketing team? So I took a job that moved me back to the U.S.
Were you eager to do that? Was it just 1 year in China?
1 year.
Was that enough for you?
I felt it was a good experience. I mean, I could have spent more, but there was also things I missed. I missed friends, I missed family, so there's a good reason to come back. But I still was getting back to China because I was with this company, so I felt it was a good balance of both. And again, a new challenge. Here I was supposedly in sales and marketing, and I'm like, I don't know what sales is. I know I've met sales people I didn't like before, so how do I maybe my goal is how do I turn my love of learning into becoming a salesperson or a marketing person?
And were you conscious enough to actually have articulated that, or was it just instinct?
That was instinct at the time. Looking back on it now, that was sort of been this drive for me, is always finding opportunities where I can learn something new and then challenge myself to apply what I've learned in the past to that new opportunity.
And did you stay in this new role for?
So I stayed there for almost 4 years, and then I went to graduate school.
Okay.
So I left Los Angeles, moved to North Carolina, Spent 2 years there. My internship, I was in New York, so I worked for JP Morgan's private equity group. My second year at Carolina, I studied abroad, never got that opportunity in undergrad, so I went to Milan, Italy for 3 months.
Oh, cool.
And Buenos Aires, Argentina for 3 months.
Nice.
And then back, finished North Carolina, moved back to Los Angeles. Actually, the company I'd worked with before in China, I rejoined them because they were contemplating selling themselves, and I was contemplating being one of the groups that was going to buy them. So I spent a couple more years there. That didn't work out, but I met my now wife at that time. We got married, and
she was working there?
No, we met playing co-ed beach football in Huntington Beach.
Co-ed beach football?
Yeah, touch. So.
And what, were you on the same team or were competing?
We got on the same team. I would tell you she was impressed with my hands. She would tell you that I just got a puppy bulldog, and that was what got her to talk to
Lured
me.
her.
Yeah, so somewhere in between is the truth.
And you asked her out on a date?
Asked her out on a date.
Go watch football somewhere? What'd you do?
Yeah, I asked her out. She actually told me no. So then I figured, well, how do you create demand? I need to stimulate demand somehow here. So I asked another girl out. She went out on a date with me. That sort of got my now wife a little ticked off.
Oh.
And then she finally went on a date with me.
Interesting. Okay. And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
And do children play a role in your current life?
We have 2 daughters right now. They'll actually turn 5 and 3 this month.
And as a learner of life, as a constant learner, have your children, what's the biggest thing they've taught you?
Biggest thing they've taught me probably is a different a type of love than you can have, I think, for another person, right? A kid is just a different experience, but also you're going to learn something new with them every day. Everything's new to them. And so what I've tried to make sure I remind myself is, how do I instill that love of learning I have for them without necessarily putting them down the path that I've been on? So I love basketball. I'm trying to encourage them to play basketball, but also soccer and play the piano and things, so they can just experience life and know that one day they'll choose what they like most or what they want to do with it, but just try and make it as broad as possible.
And how old are they?
5 and 3. Almost
Wow.
5 and 3.
Okay. And I always like to ask relatively new parents, have there been any moments of late that you just experienced a new level of pride?
My oldest one, I would say I'm also a Star Wars fan. I've taken her to Star Wars movies since she was 6 months old. So since they started releasing new ones, and she actually talks to her friends about Star Wars and knows the characters now. So that's one sense of pride
That's
I have.
my girl.
I geeked her out.
Geeked
at least
her out.
A little bit.
She loves it.
She loves it.
You gonna go to like a Star Wars convention together or something?
Maybe one day. She's really excited about the new Star Wars land opening at Disneyland. We live in Los Angeles, so that's not too far.
Star Wars land?
Yes, at Disneyland and Disney World. They're building a whole Star Wars land.
Wow.
Opens later this year.
Huh. You gonna be there?
I hope to go to it at some point later this year. I may avoid the opening weekend because
Yeah.
crowds and kids don't always work well together, but we'll find time to go.
Okay, so to backtrack a little bit, we meet your wife, and then at that point you were still not in anything to do with vacation rentals at the time.
Correct.
How did we find ourselves into this industry?
Folks, if you can't tell, we're now connecting Sean's former life, his life before vacation rentals, BVR, to his role in the fastest growing travel sector today. Some hosts think they need to hide this previous life, that it's not professional or somehow appropriate to weave it into their marketing. But no matter if your business is big or small, I would encourage you not just to include all of that, but to use it proudly. The soft way of putting this is that it can connect you with like-minded guests. A stronger way, the way that I prefer, is that you cannot build a personality-driven vacation rental business without doing so. Listen to how Sean's backstory fits in his role now as you think about how you are going to integrate yours.
So I'd had some experience with property management. I myself had rented out property management. I myself had rented out a couple homes I had owned, but more long-term rental, and had stayed in some short-term rentals. Friends, we'd traveled to Costa Rica or traveled to different parts of the U.S. and rented homes.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, but would you agree that most vacation rental professionals are introduced to the industry for the first time as a traveler?
That seems to be a common theme as
Okay.
I've met people, right?
Yeah, that's something I've observed.
Yeah, definitely. It sort of opened their eyes to, oh, this is a cool experience of experiential business and then some basic tactical operational side. So
Right.
if something brings them in, they see it and they,
So you had experience renting out some of your own stuff,
yep.
and then what?
Met my wife. She was from Seattle. She had just moved to Los Angeles also. We got married in 2011. And then I said, hey, guess what? I got a new job and it's in Milwaukee. At which point she goes, where's Milwaukee? I said, oh, well, good. It's only in like an hour north of Chicago, which is where I grew up. And she goes, okay, good. So we moved there for 4 years. She told me she was going to be ready for winter because she grew up in Washington State.
She had no idea.
She had no idea. I thought, well, if I don't tell you the truth, I haven't totally lied to you. I've just abstained myself from the truth.
And how did she fare?
She reminds me every day that I may have abstained a few things from her, but we enjoyed it. We got to experience different things like snowmobiling and Milwaukee is a fun culture. We had our first child there. And then we moved back and we moved to Los Angeles. We're right by LAX now. So really fun experience. We're closer to the water, close to the airport for me to travel.
And when did the vacation rental world enter yours?
So I really got involved with vacation rentals when I started at Point Central, which is about 2.5 years ago.
And that was a fresh new experience for you, Point Central?
Yeah. So I was involved in technology before. So when I moved back to Los Angeles, I was running Wemo, which was Belkin's home automation business unit. I was running that globally.
And when we say home automation, what does that mean?
So Wemo was making connected light switches and plug-in outlets that were sold at retailers, so Best Buy or Amazon, et cetera. And Wemo had been pretty popular. We did a good job growing it, but Belkin and Wemo sort of went through a sales process. I had an opportunity to join Point Central, which is a division of Alarm.com. I'd met the CEO of Alarm.com.
And what is Alarm.com? I don't know much about them.
Yeah, so Alarm.com is the largest provider of home automation and home security to owner-occupied units in the U.S. So you can think of, if you ever put a security system in your house, more than likely it's an Alarm.com dealer that's doing so. So our dealers range from local Joe's Alarm Company up to as large as ADT are dealers of the Alarm.com.
Got it. And so then they started Point Central, which was specifically designed for vacation rental properties?
So Point Central started 7 years ago as a different type of commercial access solution. Mm-hmm. So it was cellular-based lock. Mm-hmm. And actually at first it was on retail doors, so glass front doors where people just needed to be able to get in and get out, but didn't have a door where you could put a different type of deadbolt. From there, we had some vacation home managers look at that and say, hey, we could use that. They started to use it. We developed or partnered with Yale, started making a more residential focused lock. And then when I started 2.5 years ago, what I noticed was the lock was one part of it, but again, there was this bigger story of what these things could do. And it was, once I met some vacation home managers and spent time listening to them, it was this, okay, how can we, this is more than just a lock or a thermostat. How do we turn all this into a tool that you guys can use? And so that's where Point Central sort of evolved into, like, at the end of the day, we're not one individual device. We're a solution that the property manager can use as a tool to run their business or help with their business.
Technology, obviously, is a big word. Covers a lot of different things, but has some interesting implications in the world of hospitality. There's also a part of hospitality that is not technological or technologible. Where do you think are some of the areas that technology, for all of its great strengths and ability to solve problems, is not useful? Or maybe not useful, but is not needed?
I think the answer to that varies based on the property manager, right? Or the vacation home manager. And that's because technology as a whole, when people first think about it, can sometimes be scary. It's, how do I do this? What's this going to mean for my job, et cetera? But I think what technology does is it challenges us to look back and say, okay, what are the lower value add things I do today?
In terms of tasks.
In terms of tasks. Or spending mental cycles thinking about something or adjusting a thermostat or et cetera. And technology could help you augment those so that you free up time. Then the question is, well, where can I redevote that time to make my business better? And each person, so that answer is going to be different for them. And so that's why I'm not avoiding the question of where's technology maybe not work, but it depends on my business. A vacation rental manager who's trying to provide an experience that's maybe more simple and clean may love connected locks. The gentleman we were talking to earlier, right, where they have more very high experience with ornate historic doors and stuff, that's not necessarily what they care about, right? There's other ways of technology can help augment them, but it's the same answer won't be right for each of them. So I think it's the vacation home manager sitting down at first and asking themselves, okay, what is the core, sort of your speech yesterday, Matt, what's the core of my business? What experience do I want to deliver? And then what are the things where I would really love help in, and how can technology help me in those areas? And what are the things I need to double down from the human experience and invest my resources there.
That I'm willing to do manually.
Yes.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Or even they still may be augmented by technology, right? I may love to always talk to a guest, but maybe the lock tells me when they show up and I call them first and find a good time to stop by, say hi, bring a bottle of wine versus be there when the guest may be tired or the kids may be going crazy, right? There's ways where you can make sure the human experience is delivered at its highest value point by leveraging tech without replacing it by tech.
And have you come across owners or managers that are doing things that you greatly admire that are optimized with tech? Are there any instances in which the hospitality experience is taken to a new level using this combination of human presence with technology?
So I'm a geek, so I'm going to have a different answer to that. I've stayed in one place where the person actually had Amazon Echoes everywhere, which I love because I can just start playing random music as I walk through.
An Echo is a device that...
A voice-controlled device. Most commonly, Echoes are used to order things off Amazon, play music, or set timers, or control a home. So for me, I use them most often just to play music or tell me the news for the day. And that's an experience I really love at home. And when I've been on vacation, I actually like taking that with me. So I've had some property managers.
You bring it with you personally?
No, well, this person had them in their own home. So I get the same experience.
I see.
Because they had them.
I see.
And that is sort of my mind triggered this. Sometimes I'm guilty of, if there's a printed book in a room, I don't read it. I just, out of habit, won't. But an Echo where I could ask it basic questions like, hey, what is the Wi-Fi password? Or how do I do this? And it was able to respond like as a basic concierge. That was a really cool experience to me that, again, wouldn't be right for every vacation rental manager or guest, but was fun for me because I'm a geek. You know, my wife, on the other hand, we actually had a different vacation rental manager where in their recommendations that they sent us beforehand were some of the best selfie spots. My wife's a photographer, so she loved just knowing where could she go to take great photos with the family. So again, that's somewhat tech related, right? Selfies and Instagram posting, but indirectly. So really depends on your guest.
And do you have any like fundamental philosophies about technology, like where it's going or what its place is within the business? It sounds like you're suggesting that we should use it to optimize the experience, but where is it going? Like I would argue, I'm not the voice activated guy. I don't get excited about those sorts of things, but I also fully recognize that it's maybe the only direction of the future, the way that things are going. And so I purchased one and I've begun practicing, and I'll ask it the weather or I'll ask it to play music. Half the time it works, half the time it doesn't. For whatever reason, I'm probably doing something wrong, but I'm just trying to get a little bit more fluent with it so that I'm not totally obsolete. But that's kind of my mentality about it, is like there's a direction that things are going in. I must at least start working with it to not become irrelevant. You have any similar overarching
I do think,
beliefs?
I guess I would start with one thing, if you look at technological revolutions, every time they've happened, they're never perfectly linear. So there's usually a fear that this is going to take over that. And the reality is, while there's some disruption usually along that path, there's other parallel things that happen.
Like tell me one or two in the past.
I mean, just
what is a technological revolution?
Like think of like just even the Industrial Revolution, right? When people started moving into these centralized factories, right? There was you could look back at books written at that time of this dystopian future. And the reality is it ended up being a net positive, right? People became more educated. They've become more skilled. They moved into different industries. So I think, again, the challenge when new technologies get introduced is not, oh no, to be fearful of it. It's, okay, how do we embrace this? And what do we need to do differently as humans that allow us to evolve to the next level of what we want to do? So one of the areas I think that's fun, if I take voice and just dial it back some, it is this artificial intelligence or augmented reality.
What is augmented, by the way?
Augmented, so if virtual is you put goggles on and I show you a purely digital world. Augmented is you maybe have glasses on or you hold your phone up and it can bring things in that aren't necessarily in the room. So what I love augmented is, think of a maintenance tech in a vacation room. So Point Central, we launched a feature last year where between Alarm.com security customers and us, we have 6 million housing units on the platform. So that created 20 billion data points for us last year. We started looking through those, and what we realized was we can actually tell when an HVAC unit is starting to misbehave because it shows you in its performance graph that it's misbehaving, there's an issue. So we start now flashing that to property managers so they can take care of a problem proactively before you have an angry guest and a more expensive repair. One more step further is apply that to augmented reality, where now when your maintenance tech shows up, they bring their phone out, and then when they hold it and they look at the HVAC unit, it can layer in, okay, this is what's actually going wrong. Here's where that part is located. And by the way, here's the instructions on how to properly replace it. So again, you get a higher quality experience without, say, having to send someone out there a couple times or wasted time. So again, it's the person is still involved. You've just now made that person more effective and productive by being there.
And by the way, I know now what HVAC is because HVAC analytics, they're offered free. And actually, this is a nice opportunity. Of course, those who listen to the podcast on a regular basis know that we have a sponsor, and it is Point Central, indeed, Mr. Sean Miller. And thank you, of course, for partnering on this. But when you go to the landing page, you get free HVAC analytics. Now I know what that is.
There you go.
So that is an instance in which we are using technology combined with our human decision-making. And it is an instance in which technology hasn't necessarily replaced us. And maybe that's the big idea here. You say it's not linear. I didn't understand what you meant by that at the beginning, but now I do. It's not one or the other. Sometimes it's a combination of all.
Correct. It's not digital, right? It's not on or off, but the reality is it will start things that parallel things will happen to it. And the end point is never exactly what we predicted when we first saw it. The reality is you just have to, it's almost like being in a relationship. You just get into it and then you start evolving with it. But it is a function of, especially today, things are changing faster. And so I think trying to hide yourself from it doesn't help. The reality is you need to understand what's out there and then understand what it means for your business to make sure you apply it in the right way.
Friends, another quick note. If you think about Sean's advice on technology, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, it's not binary. Your business can be part tech, part human. It can be that blend that you dream up, the balance that you think is the best fit. This is why I like Sean. This is why I like Point Central so much. It's more than just a tech solution. It's a tech complement. Smart locks and smart thermostats, HVAC analytics, which tell you when your HVAC's acting up before it goes crazy. These are functions that remove the busy tasks from your vacation rental business. They make room for time and energy and focus on the things that make your business you. You can sign up for a free demo at pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. That's pointcentral.com/VRMB. I thought it would be cool to save the Sean conversation for last in our season, and you'll be hearing more from us soon. Here's the last segment of me and Sean.
And I would just like to point out that for those who are not here, when you said it's like a relationship, Stuart, who's sitting right here, who's managing the podcast, looked at Tammy, his partner, and I think they made a little connection there. I thought that was very lovely. Moving sort of into the future of vacation rentals as technology is integrated, is there a vacation rental business of the future that you envision? You mentioned voice automation as being perhaps, I'm guessing that you think home automation in general has an important role to play. Are there any other characteristics or personalities of this future prototype that we should start thinking about, considering you are digging into this stuff on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I think you've heard common themes along this, and we were chatting about it last night, but I do think the vacation rental managers of the future are more about how do you bring the experience forward to your guest and let some of the basic tasks, just don't spend your time there. And I think technology will help do that. So one of the examples that my personal life inspired recently was when you can start thinking of all these things being connected. So the cars, the house, the city, you can imagine a scenario where the guest is driving into a vacation rental town and there's an accident. And that accident means a 5-hour drive just became an 8-hour drive because that car is connected to a system that can tell the vacation rental manager, hey, by the way, this person's going to show up late. It could trigger a notification to the vacation rental manager who can then call or have a system that calls that person and says, hey, would you like me to order dinner so that when you show up, it's ready and you don't have hungry kids who are screaming and you're tired, right? And you've just now delivered a better experience for that guest. At the same time,
and your own business, so you're not like sitting there waiting for them because they're stuck in traffic.
Right. You're not waiting for them. If you were going to greet them, probably at this point, the guest would be going right to the house to check in, but you're just making sure your business is running better and they're having a better experience than they normally would. You can think of how that story then continues along their stay where that guest is finally now there. When they show up to the home's already been pre-cooled or preheated. Their dinner's sitting there. The lights have turned on for them. Maybe there's music playing. They get a good night's sleep. They start their vacation. They wake up the next day. They decide to go into town. Again, the city could know how many people are in town and start adjusting street lights to make sure traffic patterns don't become crazy. It could start telling guests, hey, by the way, here's parking spots, right? When you're going in town, don't worry about driving up and down all these streets. Just go right to the street, make a left, and there's a spot there for you. So again, all these things that are helping make sure the guests better enjoy their time, which at the end of the day means probably a higher chance that guest returns to that same town, to that same vacation rental manager, because it's been such a fun experience for them.
Sounds almost like an episode of Black Mirror.
Without the dystopian...
Right, and terrible ending.
Yeah, exactly.
Dangerous ending. So for the owners and managers that are technologically savvy and curious, they're going to be on this stuff already. An example comes to mind is an Inner Circle member named Ralph Morehouse. He's about 65 or 70, and he has every single piece of technology that at the moment it comes out. There's people like that, and they're on to this already. But there's a lot of people who are not so excited about it. Are there any little simple discipline things you can suggest so that we're not made obsolete or irrelevant or out of the conversation down the line?
Yeah, again, so I'd make sure you're at least understanding what's going on around you. And I think the best way, like your Inner Circle you referred to, those are your peers you look for input on. None of us can be experts at everything, but we can have a network of people that help us understand what's going on. So I think everyone wants to at least make sure you're aware of what are other people doing, what do they like about it.
And where do they do that? Where do you find that?
Today, you can find it online groups, you can find it in offline friends, networking groups, conventions. I just think it's important to make sure you're going out and are engaging in some way, whatever way is best for you. But if they're doing that, and in parallel, they take some time every now and then to also say, what does my business represent? Listen to their customers, bring in that input of what does that customer ask me for? And you mash those three things together. That will they'll start to bubble out, well, what do I want to try? And one thing we've encouraged with people, look, this doesn't have to be you go all in or you do nothing, right? You can start small, do a few devices, do a few homes, and test it and see what it thinks to you. You know, we're confident that generally our platform's been working long enough that we know it'll work. And then you'll find, what does it mean to my business and how do I want to tweak this? And that's the fun, right? That's where it's sort of, not that we're as creative as artists, but you get the artist aspect because again, it's listening to us, our customer. How do they like it? What do they want it to do? What do they want to do next? And then figuring out how the technology helps them get there. Not, hey, put this shiny object on the wall and it solves all your problems.
I think that's nice too, because that will resonate with all of us, because almost all vacation rental professionals, the successful ones, are inherently testers, problem solvers.
Yes.
We're trying things, we're seeing what's working, because there was no textbook that taught us how to do this. We had to trial and error pretty much everything. So maybe just weaving this line of thinking and this awareness of the technology that's out there into our trial and error process and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, seeing what guests seem to like, seeing what drives you absolutely nuts, right?
Very true. I mean, online bookings, all these other things. These were technological revolutions that vacation rental managers figured out. And each one of them have figured it out slightly different for themselves, but it's been important for them to try it out, see what works for their business. And you'll see at these conferences, people will talk about they have 90% of their bookings through online channels or 30%, right? Well, it's what's right for their business and what does their business need.
Yeah, I think that's healthy. And what is not right. And perhaps in some cases, it's rejecting some kind of technology. In some cases, simply identifying the fact that I refuse to let any guest check in without a human face might be your non-negotiable and that which makes you different. I think I get very excited about these reverting back to the old school things that are all of a sudden luxuries again. And those are going nowhere. Those will be around forever and maybe even more valuable than they used to be before.
But if you understand what you stand for, then you understand what you can say no to and what you can say yes to. But it's important first to understand, what do I want to be? And the reality is you will change. You may change over time what you want to be. You may not, but you have to have that vision first to be able to understand what's the things you want to test and what are the things you don't want to test.
I love that. I would like to conclude this interview by thanking you for your industry leadership and also for your support of the podcast. The theory behind these podcasts is that if we can share best practices and document them, the little steps eventually will lead us to a future wherever that takes us. And that's nice to be around people who make that process fun.
No, well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity of also being a partner with you and helping to encourage these types of discussions and conversations, right? It's fun for us as partners in this space to understand where's it going, what do people like, what are they afraid of, et cetera, and appreciate what you and your team do to encourage that.
Amazing. Should we walk over to the conference center?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
And to close, just a quick reminder of who made this episode possible. It's Point Central, the property automation experts of our industry. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And when you use that page, you'll become eligible for free HVAC analytics, which tells managers when the HVAC starts to misbehave before our guests get upset.
This also makes property owners happy by taking care of the problem before it becomes too expensive. And if you're feeling cheerful, please also consider writing us a quick review in your podcast app. We read every single one of them, and we pass them along to our esteemed guests. This industry is growing up quickly, my friends. This industry is unlocked.